we are now adding a piece called Turn Your Talent into a Business, where I developed a formula where I can actually tell people how much money they can make with the skill that they have. It's called the profit formula. Like it's a mathematical calculation. And I've developed 4 factors, and now I can take him through and say, well, do you want to know how much money you can make with this? Let me take you through this. This is the actual number you can make.
Hi, and welcome to Helping You Perform. I'm your host, Paul Teasdale. Over a career working with high-performing teams from across the globe, including 7 years working with Formula One team McLaren, I've learned a lot about what it takes to drive results. In this weekly podcast series, I'm going to be bringing you tips, tricks, and insights from the world of Formula One that you can apply for your organisation for your own high performance. Enjoy. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Helping People Perform, where I'm joined by some amazing people who've got their stories about their vocation in life and how they help others perform at their best. Delighted to be joined today all the way from LA. I have Beate Chelette, who's the growth architect and founder of the Women's Code. And welcome to the show today, Beate.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks so much. We've got so much to talk about today and so much great stuff that you have done and are doing. So maybe you could start off with telling us a little bit about yourself, what got you to where you are today.
Yes. So I am known as a growth architect, as you said, and I work with visionaries and thought leaders, help them grow their authority and scale their impact. And originally, I'm from Germany, so you might still hear a little bit of an accent there. I mean, at least I tell myself it's a little bit of an accent and not the heavy accent that the Germans have, you know. And I was starting out as a photographer, so I come from the creative arts, and I've always been better at the business side of things.
Right.
And I was a photo editor at Elle magazine in Germany. I immigrated to the United States, chose Los Angeles as my permanent home, and then was in the photography production business, where I worked for clients like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Wrangler, Levi's, a lot of catalogs that came from Europe to produce here in Los Angeles. And then I went through what I call a decade of bad luck with really big disasters and tragedies, from fires, floods, riots, earthquake, September 11th, which wiped out my production business in a day. I lost $500,000, a lawsuit by a bad employee that cost me another $500,000. And then I finally figured out how to crack the code, built up a stock photography syndication business, and magically figured out how to get from $135,000 in debt as a single, broke, miserable mom to becoming a self-made multimillionaire by selling my business to no other than Bill Gates.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your profile and some of the previous conversations, you've mentioned this. That's no mean feat, shall we say? So, what was the story there? How did you build that up, and how did it end up getting sold on to Bill?
Yeah, so the idea behind a lot of these things, you know, we're talking about performing and how do you perform. Sometimes I think, Paul, people underestimate that the challenges that we are in are really stretch marks, that we are going through this because we're becoming the person that we need to be ready for that next stage of our lives.
Right.
So if you are not making changes, if you are not stretching, if you are not having growing pains, then you're remaining exactly where you are. And then guess what? What you do is exactly what's going to happen tomorrow and next year and in 10 years and in 20 years. So I finally figured out that this production business that fell apart and the photography business that fell apart were businesses that needed me to be in them all the time.
Right.
And when I was in that, I realized they wasn't making money when I wasn't there. And I had this idea that I needed to play on a larger global scale. And I had no idea how this was going to go. Little did I know that God spurred the universe, whatever you want to call it, then just said, oh, okay, we're listening, and just shredded everything that I had. I think that the transition probably could have been a little softer, if you ask me, instead of this crazy hardship.
Yeah.
And then I had this idea of building up this stock photography syndication that was specialized in architectural and interior photography. And that was at a time when digitization just started, and I had learned a lot of lessons in my previous businesses. So I went after the A-listers. And the A-listers in photography, of course, photograph A-list homes and work with A-list architects and A-list interior designers who, as you imagine, do the celebrity A-list decorating and designing and building.
Right.
And next thing I know, these photographers that work with the best, that are in the top 1%, come and bring me their stories and say, hey, this just came out of embargo from Elle magazine, or this just came out of embargo from Vogue Casa in Italy. Can you do something with these stories? And I'm like, well, that's Madonna's house. That's Seal's house. That's Francis Ford Coppola's house. That's Terry Hatcher, Simon Baker.
Wow.
I mean, this is the Naomi Campbell. It's the who's who of who's who.
Yeah.
And I then said, well, I was an editor at Elle magazine. I used to buy these stories. So I figured out how to build an international syndication network amongst other stock photography syndications. And I started selling these stories like hotcakes, and I sold them 10, 20, 30 times. And that's what made me the industry leader after the worst moment in my life within 18 months. Nice. And that's when the Bill Gates company came that had purchased a stock syndication that was specific for celebrity portraiture, and they couldn't grow it because it's a high touch business. And then they said, well, the only way we can grow it is if we buy this particular brand. And so that's how the purchase happened.
Wow. Amazing stuff. And just for more for me, maybe for the audience as well. So when you say stock photography syndication, I'm thinking, I mean, I've used the likes of Unsplash and things like that. Is that like a group of a place where you can go to find photographs under a given theme or under a given artist or photographer that's there? Is that what?
Yeah. So there's a whole industry of stock photography syndications, and there are agencies or syndication agencies that are all over the world that are representing other people's collections. So probably the most famous one right now is Getty Images. Right. And Getty Images has offices in literally every country, and in the countries that they're not in, they have distribution agreements. Right. And so these companies have all distribution agreements. So we were licensing in 79 countries, and we had only an office here in Los Angeles, and then we had all these distribution partners. So the partners took a percentage of the sale that they kept, and then they sent us the rest, and then we split that with the photographers that we were licensing the material from. Right. And there are individual images. Imagine you going into a bank, and behind the teller on the bank, it says on the wall, do you want to refinance your house? And it shows a beautiful house. That would have been our image. Right. You go to IKEA, you pick up a photo of the black and white photo of the bicycle leaning in Amsterdam on the canal. Right. That has sold, I think, over 5 million copies. And you look at the fine print, it has my name on it. It says, Beate Works, and this is my photographer, Fernando Bengochea, that unfortunately vanished in the tsunami, in the Asian tsunami. And another one of my crazy stories, overcoming in building this. And if you go to a home improvement store and you pick up a brochure for paint colors, and you see those images of the red roof, the blue door, those would be images that they would have licensed from us.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm sure that my audience, even if they haven't specifically heard your name in the past, then they'll have seen one of your images, or many of your
images. They probably
have.
Yeah, we had hundreds of coffee table books, covers, stories. I mean, we were everywhere.
Oh, brilliant. And how was that experience for you working with the creative side of things? Because you mentioned that you started off in the creative, but you're always interested in the business piece. So what was that relationship like for you? What learnings did you take from that?
To me, this is really the best of both worlds. I like people that are non-conforming, that have crazy big ideas, visionaries. I like colorful people. I like people that don't fit the mold. And I like great ideas, and I help people land planes. And so for me, what happened, Paul, is that they would say something, and I said, well, that's easy. All you have to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's like, how did you do that? I'm like, do what? Yeah. And then somebody else would come and says, well, I wished I could, turn this into a whatever makeup line, or I wished I could get this in front of the right people. I'm like, oh, that's easy. All you have to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That. How do you do that? I'm like, do what? And then it dawned on me that this was a natural ability that I have.
Right.
When somebody says something to me about an idea, I immediately can come up with a plan or a unique positioning that will help them to get this to market pretty quickly.
Okay, so maybe that takes us nicely into what you do today. So tell us a bit more about today in terms of who you help and how you help them.
Yes. So today this has taken on kind of like the next level thing. So I work with a lot of people that need to land planes, and I help people to create the strategies and the systems behind their ideas, and then help them to build a business model, unique value proposition, so that they can go out. So my best work is done in something that I call the signature growth system. And that is when people that seemingly do multiple things that don't connect, like they wrote a book, and then they are speaking, and then they do business consulting, they do coaching, they may have a program for this, a program for that. And then when people look at it, it's like, so what are you now? Are you a consultant or are you a coach? Are you a speaker or an author? And then when you try to explain how this all fits under one umbrella, you stumble along. 5 minutes later, they still don't know what you're doing. They turn around and walk away, and you have no opportunity to sell. But what I do is when I listen to it, I can always, every time, I can find what the umbrella is, the
Right.
system
Mm.
that all of these things fit under, and help create this client transformation journey, where then we take all the things that you do from, the first step, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth step, and take them through this one by one by one by one,
Right.
so that we can then help the client to say, well, I help people with this transformation. That sounds interesting. Like, I'm the growth architect.
Right.
That sounds interesting. What do you do? Well, I work with visionaries and thought leaders to help them scale their authority and grow their authority and scale their impact. What does this mean, grow your authority? Well, you need a unique differentiation factor. You need a strategy, a system. We follow the 5-star success blueprint. What is a 5-star success blueprint? That's our proprietary method. We go, it starts with the idea, then to the offer, then the system, the team, and the people. Well, I'm not sure if my stuff, has a good product market fit. Well, so you're right there at the first one. Well, shall we talk about this? So
Right.
you get immediately drawn into a much deeper conversation. Now, if I would have said I'm a business consultant,
Mm.
in their mind, they go, I don't need a business consultant.
Right. Yeah.
And the conversation is over.
Mm. No,
So that's where I help people. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm just saying. I love a process, and I love a framework that people can follow. And what I'm hearing from you there is what you've been able to do is take all of this great stuff, distill it into something that is coherent, and be able to describe it in that base way to begin with, so that people get intrigued and go into the pieces of that and the definitions that are important to them, so that you can then expand out and get those definitions as well. So I think that's a wonderful lesson to take in terms of being able to do that and get that down to something distilled, and allow people to take you where they need to be and where they need to go in terms of finding out the next step. Yeah.
Yes, you exactly, you nailed it. Because what happens a lot of times, especially in the knowledge business or in the expert business, is that there is a transaction of one particular thing that you help solve for your clients.
Mm.
And then that's the beginning and the end, and there's nothing else.
Right.
But if you have a system, then you preceding all these other pieces that you're doing, and then you have a much easier time to tell your client, look, once you have the idea, we need to look at the offer, but that's where we have to start.
Right.
So once we've accomplished that, we move to this. Or you say, well, you sounds like you have the idea and the offer nailed. How about your systems? Oh, you're on burnout formula. Well, now we need to just look at your system. So it helps people to also really clearly understand where they are in the process. And that's the magic. That's what we are consultants for.
Oh, brilliant. And I do love that, because being relatively new in the independent part of the consulting world, I've always been an employee for the majority of my career. And that's a challenge that I've faced. And I know a lot of solopreneurs and individuals going out there themselves. It's just like, I've got this offer, and okay, I'll deliver the offer. People love the offer, and then we're finished. And now I've got to go again and sell again. So being able to take that wider and help people along the journey is a wonderful thing. So who do you tend to work with then? Who would be your typical client sets? Or
My clients are really, I have a pretty broad range. So I've worked with companies like Amazon, where I help them to facilitate, helping with a partner together where we brought in all the pieces of a particular program that they needed to launch and to help them to understand how these pieces fit together and organize them, building that system basically.
yeah,
And then I work with a lot of individual businesses that can range from, wanting to get to 100,000 to, all the way to multi-million dollars. It really depends on where in the journey they are. We are now adding, because of the people like you, the exodus of the employee market into consulting or coaching, we are now adding a piece called Turn Your Talent into a Business, where I developed a formula where I can actually tell people how much money they can make with the skill that they have. It's called the profit formula. Like it's a mathematical calculation. And I've developed 4 factors, and now I can take him through and say, well, do you want to know how much money you can make with this? Let me take you through this. This is the actual number you can make.
wow, oh, intriguing stuff. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people who are going to be nibbling at and chomping at the bit on that one, because and that ability to connect people with the questions that really matter to them. And quite often you can have a great offer or a great thought of an offer or a service, and if you are niche, then it can help with getting some clients. But knowing up front how big of an offer this is and the potential can really help you to set up for success, I'm sure, in the first place.
Well, and then I think that's the whole point. What you're saying is, so if somebody says, well, I've been in communications at the corporation, and I want to help people in communications, but I don't even know how much money I can make. Let's say I need to replace 100,000 pounds or $100,000 or 100,000 euros, whatever your currency is. You don't know if you can do that.
Mm.
And so that's why I developed the formula to say, well, what is the hourly rate? What are these factors? What is your experience? And I gave it valuations. So at the end of it, you can say, well, if you were to work 1,000 hours a year, you'd be making $500,000. That's the potential. That doesn't mean that you're making that money, but that's the potential you can make if you put the business properly together. And I think that that's a different idea for people, because that way they see what's possible. And energetically, as you very well know as a consultant yourself, if we reverse engineer what's possible, then we are much more solution focused.
No, I love that. I spent a good few years working for McLaren, the Formula One team, and they do a lot of simulation and modeling in virtual environments, where half of the point of that is I can test something in a virtual environment that says, if I can get this part like half the weight that it is currently and twice as strong, what would that mean in terms of value to the car? In that case, speed and drivability and all the rest of it. And if the answer to that is in the region of X, then you say, right, well, it's worth investing in making that happen. As opposed to, if it's like only half of that, then actually, no, I'm going to spend too much money for not enough benefit. And that's a great way of saying up front, is it worth me putting all this time and effort in? Is it ever going to pay off? Has it even got the potential to pay off? So really applaud you for what you're doing there, because that's answering a question I'm having thought about it myself. I didn't even know that question was was there for me. But
I just may take you through that calculation.
Brilliant stuff. And so how do people get involved with that then? Do they just engage directly with you? Do you offer that as a course, as an app, or what sort of connection?
Yeah, so for everybody who is really interested in this, we are launching a challenge called Passion to Profits.online, where we are first revealing this formula. It's a 4-day challenge.
Right.
And and at the time of this recording and when this drops, you should be spot on as this launches. So go and check it out, Passion to Profits.online. If you're listening to this recording after it's launched, we'll add a wait list, and then you just sign up for that, and then we'll let you know when we do the next one. But this formula, this profit formula, is specific for this particular challenge, and it's our first one. So it's, I don't want to say it's beta, but it is, it's in the first testing, because I hear this over and over and over again from everybody. It's like, well, how much money can I make with it? What's my talent even worth? And I'm like, well,
Right.
allow me to use my expertise and what I've seen, and put this together. The other thing that how people can get in touch with me, take our quiz at growthblockerquiz.com.
Right.
It's free. It helps you to identify what your number one business growth blocker is. So if you're in this dreaded business sine wave where it goes up and down, or often called the entrepreneur roller coaster, just go and check it out, and then we'll send you a report telling you exactly what you can do to remove this particular blocker. And if you heard something where you go like, oh God, I have to talk to her, then go to uncoverysession.com and schedule a call with our business growth advisor, and we'll help you in 15 minutes to figure out what the opportunities are for you in this market, so that you can grow and build that business.
Oh, wonderful. And we'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes and shared with everyone. So if you are listening to this or watching this and you want to find out more, definitely go below and find those links and click on them, because I know I'll be going there and checking those out for myself. So, so maybe let me ask a slightly different question about you, Beate. So you're obviously performing at a really high level here. You've got some real great performance stories for yourself. But how do you make sure that you are always on top of your game, and you sort of are keeping as your saw as sharp as you can, if you will?
Yeah, so there are a number of things that I do. I do a lot of self-development, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And for anybody listening to this right now, I do really ask you now to go wherever you pick up this podcast, give Paul a 5-star review, subscribe, and please do leave a comment. And the comments are so critical because it helps pick up the engagement by the algorithm. And then Paul can help more people. And then share this episode with one other person. And when you've done that, let's go back to your original question. So I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of documentaries. And I'm currently listening to The Surrender Experiment as an audiobook. I'm preparing for an ayahuasca journey at the end of the year to, really go into a next level dimension. I believe that success mindset are very, very closely connected. You cannot do one without the other. So your spiritual development is directly correlated to your business success. And some of the old stories that we have about family, about money, about, what holds us back, need to now really be re-examined and let go if you want to go to that next level. I work with a high performance coach. Actually, I have my session today in a couple hours where I talk to her regularly, and she always puts my feet to the fire and helps me to be the better version of myself. So in order for me to perform, I have to not just tell other people, but I have to create practices around what I tell others. Right. And sometimes that's very difficult to do, where you say, well, you got to meditate, you got to do this, and then you don't.
Yeah.
And so I read a lot and always try to take an information of figuring out what is that next thing, and listening to also spiritual guidance to see what kind of comes up for me that I need to learn to take this to the next level.
Oh, wonderful stuff. And I think there's so many different ways that people can get their energy. And I think that's the key bit, is whatever it takes for you to get your energy to where it needs to be to move forward and perform, whether that's walks in nature, whether that's coaching, whether that's listening to
dancing,
music, whatever it might be, it's then it's about getting that energy right for you, so that you can not only continue to perform but challenge your performance barriers as well, in terms of where can you go from here. So I'd love to hear that. I've just glanced down at my notes, and I've realised I did want to ask you a little bit about the women's code and your the efforts that you put into to help women. So can you just give us a little bit of background about the women's code, how you got into that, and what do you get out of it as well?
Yeah, so I got into the women's code because after I sold my business to this Bill Gates company, and I was asked to come on as a director of entertainment for all of Corbis, this Bill Gates company globally. And when I was in it, I realized that women are treated very differently than men. And this like whole she tyrant or all these things that people always talk about women being just absolutely horrific with each other. I experienced this firsthand and it reminded me like high school
Right.
and I'm going like, well, we are really not in high school anymore. And the behavior is. And so I realized that women need to have a code amongst ourselves first before we can address the larger issues. And if we don't have a code amongst ourselves, we'll never address the bigger issues. And if you look at what's happening right now, it couldn't be more true because the minute women are not together and fighting for the same thing,
Yep.
we cannot address the inequalities that are out there.
Mm.
And I know you had a huge controversy in soccer, and I
Yeah.
mean it's just nuts on what people are saying. It's like no, nobody has a right over a woman's body. Nobody has a right over any of that. And why is it so difficult for women to give another woman that exact right? And so that's why I set up the women's code to give women some guidelines to help themselves and others and to also understand what's going on and to be the best version of themselves and then go and kick some butt.
Amazing stuff. And that's a book you wrote as well, isn't it? From that's available again. We'll put the link
Yes.
to that so that people can,
Yeah.
can
The
check
book
that
is
out.
Happy Woman, Happy World, how to get your foolproof fix, how to get from overwhelmed to awesome. And that's available on Amazon as an audio printed and book and as an ebook as well.
Fantastic. So let's make sure we all check that out and take the lessons from that. So maybe let's ask you a different question then, in terms of you've got this amazing skill set and you've got this experience and this background that can add so much value to a lot of people. If you had the ability to work with any individual, team, or organization to help them perform with the experience and skills that you've got, who would you want that to be?
I probably would want to go to companies that are at about the 100 to 250 employees, where there is a significant opportunity, but they're not so stuck in their ways
Right.
that they can't not make changes. I think that the large organizations like the IBMs or even the Apples or the Facebooks have pretty much lost causes because the machine is so big that in order to make a change in that machine, it just takes a much larger undertaking and so much more time. I am best at helping companies that have a market opportunity and they want to move on it fast.
Right. Brilliant. And are there any sort of dream clients in your or types of dream clients that are out there that you go, I would absolutely love to work with this individual client or a particular service level or a different industry?
That is such a good question. I never even thought about it like that. I work with a lot of people that are in the entrepreneurs organization, and I really tend to like that group because they're my people.
Right.
So anybody who is like a in the YPO Young Professional Organization or EO, anybody in that realm, that would I love working with these people because they're all nuts.
Brilliant. That's what we like. A nice bit of color, bit of character, and a bit of crazy to go
Add
along.
a little color, sprinkle the color over it. Yes.
And if we switch that around a bit and then say, in order to help you perform, if you could sit down with anyone and just have that conversation, have a coffee or a meal or a drink with someone and say, just through that chat, I could just get so much from my own performance. Who would you want that to be?
I probably would like to sit down with Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks is like a very well known spiritual medium that's channeling, um, probably people on a high spiritual level. My mindset trainer, David Nagel, I would love to just hang out with him, just him and me for a couple hours because I always get so much out of him.
Yeah.
And I think I can do without Elon Musk if you really want to ask me. But although that would be an interesting exercise just to see how his brain works,
Yeah.
because with his with being on the spectrum and then having obviously ADD, it would be interesting to see what goes on in his brain, because there's very specific brain chemistry with him. Wouldn't mind doing that. Definitely people that have a little bit of being a badass, and that come across as incredibly unapologetic about what they do.
Right. Brilliant. So if you're out there and you think you fit that mold, then give Beate a shout out, and I'm sure she'll connect.
Yeah, call me.
Which takes us on to the next bit. How do people find out more, Beate? Where do they go? We've got a couple of links there, but what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, reach out, drop in my DM on Instagram or on Facebook or Threads or Twitter or wherever that might be. I'm either under my name, Beate Chelette. To my knowledge, I'm the only person with that name, at least actively in the industry, nice. And or the growth architect. And make sure you mention the show so we can get you priority treatment. But I am pretty active out on social media or TikTok. Join my channel and reach out to me there.
Brilliant. And as always, I encourage my listeners to do connect. Do go out and take people up on this opportunity. You never know where it's going to take you. I've had some amazing experiences outside of this podcast as well as inside it, but just picking up the phone or dropping an email or dropping a message to someone and saying, any chance of a chat? And if people say no, then it wasn't to be. But if they do, you never know where it's going to take you. So,
you never know where it's going to lead you. No, 100%.
Yeah. So, Beate, I wish you the best of luck in everything you do going forward, because I think there's some amazing stuff around that formula that you've got in play, and your ability to bring those umbrella terms and bring that simplicity in the process to people's lives is really valuable to all. So thanks for that, and thanks for so much for being on the show today, Beate.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Helping You Perform podcast. If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to like, share, or review the podcast. You can reach out to me at any time, either through LinkedIn or through my website at www.paulteasdale.co.uk. I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode.